Rain pours over the police station as a woman named Seoryeong steps inside to report something about her husband. She describes his strange behavior from the night before. The officer asks what felt off. On the bed, she says with a chilling look, leaving him confused. A moment of silence passes before she repeats it, on the bed. Memories from the previous night rush in, and she starts to question what went wrong in their 2-year marriage. It's shocking to her, her husband, Kim Hyun, had never once broken a sweat during intimacy. He was always gentle, respectful, and mindful of her blindness. Wait, she had said that night, but Hyun whispered, there's no time. The calm and predictable Kim Hyun began to act strangely. He spoke about pain that leaves lasting marks, then tightened his grip on her wrist, ignoring her protests. He warned, or rather, threatened her to never get close to anyone else. She was stunned, even as he muttered about having her just for tonight. The next morning, Seoryeong comments on a neighbor probably moving out, judging by the loud noise. Curious, she wonders who it could be. Hyun soothes her nerves and brings up the night before. She openly mentions how odd he acted and how tiring the night was. Suggesting they talk more after work, she nudges him toward the door. He pauses and calls her name. A silence settles between them. She senses his eyes on her, and despite her blindness, she knows he isn't smiling. After what feels like forever, he finally says goodbye. She wants to ask what's wrong, but remembers the doctor's advice, to avoid emotional strain. Evening comes quickly, and the clock reads 8 p.m. She questions if she's hearing right, he should be home by now, especially because of her condition. She tries calling him again and again, but his phone is unreachable. Worry creeps in. Something feels off. While cutting vegetables, she accidentally slices her finger. Still, she keeps dialing, the pain meaningless next to her growing fear. At the station, the officer seems uninterested in her marital troubles. He says he can't take action since it hasn't been 24 hours, unless it's a criminal case. She's puzzled. He explains how missing person cases can sometimes hide assaults and urges her to be honest. Then, he eyes her blood-stained clothes and asks, whose blood is that? She wonders if saying it's her husband's would help find him faster. She remembers meeting Hyun when she was 24, shortly after her retina condition started. He helped her with a walking stick, and she thought it was just an ordinary encounter. She had always lived by good morals, so using a walking aid made her feel ashamed. She had felt helpless, until he offered her a cup of coffee. After an awkward silence, he held her hand, and in that moment, it felt like light had returned to her life. Back in the present, the police station grows tense. A detective walks in with shocking news, Seoryeong is the only person living in the Manhwa villa. She disagrees, saying she greeted neighbors that morning. Still, the detective insists. Then, another officer shares an update, there's no record of anyone named Kim Hyun in the resident register. She's left speechless. A month has passed, and Seoryeong is still mourning her husband's disappearance. She remembers her conversation with the detective, who urged her to calm down and warned that she could be charged with obstruction if she kept pushing. But Seoryeong didn't back down. She pleaded with him to reopen the case one last time. Frustrated, the detective reminded her that without any official records, there was nothing to investigate. Seoryeong even suggested that a criminal group might be involved, but the detective warned her not to push further or risk serious consequences. Still, he admitted she'd likely been scammed, though that only confused her more, since none of her finances had been touched. His dismissive tone stung, especially when he told her to ask her husband for the full story. Later, Seoryeong finds herself staring at a church statue, wondering why he left. A priest approaches, concerned by her tired appearance. "Oh sister," he says gently, "you look unwell. Please, get some rest." She thanks him for his kindness but asks him directly, "Do you believe in things you can't see?" The priest seems surprised by the question. Seoryeong urges him to open his eyes, to avoid being deceived like she was. The priest eventually gives her an answer, but it only leaves her more confused. Standing there, emotions spill over. She quietly blames herself for loving him blindly, for not seeing the truth. Memories rush back, and she swears she can feel the warmth of his hand again. Moved by her pain, the priest offers comfort through a Bible verse, Matthew 7 verse 7. But what happens next shocks her. A flyer nearby catches her attention, and suddenly, she realizes she can see. Her vision is back. The discovery stuns her, but with it comes a new sense of determination. At the hospital, Seoryeong goes through an eye exam. The ophthalmologist stares in disbelief as she reviews the results. Her eyes are recovering. Seoryeong, still stunned, starts connecting the dots, her husband's disappearance, and now, her sudden ability to see. Then the doctor shares something that leaves her speechless. Someone has been tampering with her optic nerve, causing temporary paralysis. Memories flash through Seoryeong's mind, her husband helping with her medication. She questions why her doctor changed. The new doctor explains she took over for Dr. Park, who had accepted a job overseas. But Seoryeong's expression darkens. Her husband didn't vanish alone. Walking down memory lane, we see the couple standing before their large wedding photo, smiling in admiration. Seoryeong, unable to see clearly due to her condition, asks what the picture looks like. She wishes she could see their expressions with her own eyes. Moved by her longing, Kim Hyun comforts her, making her laugh. The photo is quickly forgotten as they get lost in a warm, romantic moment. Now, in the present, Seoryeong stands in front of that same picture. She's deep in a tense phone conversation, wondering if the name, the company, and even the license plate could all be fake. She points out that there's no camera footage, no eyewitnesses, still asking if the caller can help her find her husband. But the man on the other end voices his doubts. He thinks all the people involved are following someone's orders and urges her to tell him everything, starting with her neighbors. She brings up the neighbor next door, the one with a dog. But the caller presses her for specific details. "I need facts," he says. The call ends abruptly, and the silence in the room feels heavy. A few days later, she visits the Angel Detective Agency. She's hopeful as she asks about any new leads on her husband. Suddenly, one of the detectives explodes, shouting, "What kind of scumbag was he living with?" In the heat of the moment, Seoryeong lets loose with a string of curse words, until another team member steps in and calms things down. That calmer figure introduces himself as Jong Pilju, team leader of Blast Corporation's information analysis team. He explains the company is a private military contractor, government approved to operate in overseas conflict zones, and they also run an errand service. Still, he apologizes, saying they can't take on her case. "Why not?" she asks. The emotional detective snaps again, accusing her of providing false information. But then comes a twist. Seoryeong reveals a clue the neighbor missed, the dog's name. It's the only piece of information that seems real. She managed to trace the dog to a registered animal hospital. However, the records list a different owner, a 67-year-old woman named Kim Yeonmi. Confused, Seoryeong argues that the dog's owner was a man. Maybe it's a different dog? But the emotional detective insists, backing it up with evidence, receipts from Yeonmi's credit card, dating back 5 years. Seoryeong stares at the screen, struggling to process it, then quietly admits that her vision is still in recovery. This catches Jong's attention. He studies a receipt from a bookstore and notices something strange. It's tied to the National Intelligence Service, listed as NIS Basic. Seoryeong begins to wonder what this could mean. Then Jong reveals a new twist. Kim Yeonmi has a son, supposedly employed at a publishing house. And there's more, he might have infiltrated Seoryeong's neighborhood, possibly working as a low-level field agent, if he passed the NIS exam. Completely stunned, Seoryeong voices her confusion. Jong calmly asks again, what exactly did her husband do? She sighs, struggling to explain, then blurts out, "He drove me crazy, then vanished." But that's not all. She reveals something even more shocking. He bought out the entire villa and controlled everything within a 200-meter radius. Jong freezes for a moment, clearly alarmed. He warns her that she might be dealing with some very dangerous people. He goes on to explain that a Black Ops agent from the National Intelligence Service might be involved. And that means no one, not even most NIS officials, knows who they really are. Their identities are top secret. Jong continues, explaining how these agents erase every trace of themselves, no names, no faces, no records. There's a real chance you may never see your husband again, he says. Meanwhile, across the city, a surveillance camera captures something eerie, a young man peeling off artificial skin from his face. We're just as shocked as the curly-haired guy watching it happen, though he's seen it plenty of times. His name is Wachung Na, a genius hacker and part of the NIS support team. He's on a call with a colleague, checking in. Did you get out okay? He asks. A quick, shaken yeah comes through the speaker. The voice belongs to Lee Wushin, better known by his codename, Mecca. The next scene opens with Chung Na, the eccentric hacker, reminding Wushin of the importance of using a silicone mask and a voice modulation chip. You can't trust anyone, he says, as serious as ever. Then, with a smirk, he praises Wushin's acting skills, joking that maybe he even fell in love a little. Wushin instantly calls out his name in a warning tone. When did your tongue get so loose? He asks sharply. But Chung Na shrugs it off, playfully insisting that the target, Owl, was the one who fell for Wushin, not the other way around. Trying to shift the conversation, he brings up something else. Over a month ago, she came to the police station covered in blood and said it was her husband's. That gets Wushin's attention. His eyes narrow in surprise, but Chung Na quickly adds, relax, it was her own blood. Probably cut herself while cooking or something. He doesn't dwell on it long. Instead, he switches gears again, revealing something more serious. The fake identity of the missing husband has been exposed. Seoryeong's sharp, he admits. She dug deep. I pulled some security footage from the station. Want to take a look? But Wushin isn't amused. His voice drops into that same warning tone. Why would I want to see that? Ignoring him, Chung Na keeps pushing, but Wushin cuts in again, this time with a real question. Was my marriage to Seoryeong even real? A heavy silence falls. He answers his own question, coldly. She was just a target. I was assigned the role of her husband. That was it. His voice tightens with finality. The mission is over. Don't bring it up again. Don't even think about it. But Chung Na isn't ready to let it go. After monitoring Wushin and Seoryeong for 2 years, there's so much he wants to say. Still, Wushin makes it clear he's not interested. The two slip into their usual banter, teasing each other like old friends. Wushin jokes that Chung Na needs to go back to school, and after a few playful jabs, Chung Na finally throws his hands up in surrender. Chung Na slumps back in his chair with a long sigh, still wrapped up in his team leader's frustration. His eyes drift to the screen in front of him, a picture of Seoryeong quietly staring back at him. He mumbles a soft goodbye, hoping she can forget the cold, unfeeling version of Wushin she once knew. In the next scene, Seoryeong sits across from the ever-dramatic Bunny, their conversation unusually serious. Bunny leans in, eyes wide. Wait, are you seriously planning to defect to North Korea? But Seoryeong quickly clears up the misunderstanding. No, not defect, just visit, she explains. She goes on, saying that if she wants to deal with a Black Ops agent, she'll have to think bigger, maybe even reach the level of international crime. She tells Bunny that she's scouted places like the Payu Unification Bridge and the Imjin River. Her real reason for reaching out? Chung Na. Bunny almost chokes on his breath, convinced she's going to feed him to the NIS. Seoryeong, unfazed, reminds him of something he once said, about how people like her husband can vanish without a trace. Now, she's going to try a different strategy. Her plan? Commit enough crimes to get on the NIS radar. That way, she might cross paths with an active agent. I'll meet him again, she says firmly. Only this time, he'll be the one chasing me. A few days later, Seoryeong hits the gas and speeds straight into the city of Paju. Her eyes are fixed forward, her mind replaying a memory. In a flashback, she and Chang-na are seen planning their escape in case they're ever caught. In a quiet moment, she confessed the inner conflict tearing her apart, whether to end him or to love him. And for now, she chooses the first, finding strange comfort in that decision. "Every day is sorrowful," she once said, smiling eerily. Back in the present, it's like a scene straight out of Fast and Furious. Seoryeong barrels toward a police checkpoint, ignoring the armed guards screaming at her to stop. "Hurry and stop her," another soldier shouts. But instead of scaring her, the chaos only fuels her courage. She laughs, begging them to catch her and take her to her husband. Glancing at the rearview mirror, she decides the chaos has gone on long enough and suddenly brings the car to a halt. Two soldiers rush up from behind. One of them stumbles and falls flat on the ground, panting hard while his partner tries to help him stay upright. Seoryeong watches with a mix of frustration and disbelief at how easily they've failed to catch her. She turns the ignition again, determined to finally make it to North Korea. But just a few minutes into her drive, more soldiers block her path and declare she's under emergency arrest. As evening falls, she's taken to an interrogation room. A man soon enters, introducing himself as someone from the National Intelligence Service. As expected, he accuses her of breaking national security laws and damaging military property, exactly what she was aiming for. He explains the impact of her actions, including how a popular tourist site had to be shut down. Still, she shows no remorse. Instead, she congratulates herself, leaving the lawyer completely stunned. Taking control of the room, she even brings up the soldier who collapsed from hyperventilation and suggests he get proper treatment at a hospital. The detective shifts uncomfortably, warning her about the serious consequences she's facing. Then, quoting the classic line, "Watch what you say," in summary, he starts the interrogation. He asks why she pulled such a reckless stunt. She refuses to answer, and his patience wears thin. He changes the question, "Who is Kim Hyun?" She looks him in the eye and calmly replies, "He's my husband." But the detective points out that her records list her as unmarried. He then asks if the man she claims recently disappeared is the same person she calls her husband. She quickly replies, "Yes." Next, he questions her reason for wanting to defect to North Korea because of him. She stuns everyone by quoting her husband's favorite line, one that references the National Defense Commission and the Republic of Korea. Building on that, she mentions her original plan was to report the spy, but she gave up because she doesn't know his real face or name. Still fully in control, she turns the question around, asking if they'd help her uncover the truth. In an unexpected twist, she brings up her missing husband again, urging them to track him down. She warns that if they don't act fast, he could cause even more damage, and the government will be forced to intervene. "Don't you agree?" she asks coolly. The detectives exchange glances, the room falling into silence. Then, a phone buzzes. One of them picks up. It's the chief deputy. No one hears what he says, but the detective listens closely and nods in agreement. She stares at him, her mind filled with intrusive thoughts. Eventually, the detective stands, informing her that the attempted defection will likely be dismissed due to mental instability. However, there will still be a fine of 10 million won for damaging military property. But she stands up, growing agitated. She rants about her husband being a spy, asking if anyone is going to investigate further. The detectives thank her for her cooperation and begin to leave. Seoryeong starts to suspect something is off when they refuse to discuss the case. "Do any of you know Kim Hyun?" she asks, staring at them intently. They stop in their tracks and turn back. "Excuse me," one of them responds, looking at her. "Don't you think it's pathetic to hide this kind of information?" she says.